right, this is the Committee on Government Operations, Public Safety, and Public Service. This is Monday, March 6, 2017. We're at 6 p.m. I have Council McKinnon.
Here.
I have Council McLaughlin.
Present.
I have Council Capone. We have 3 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand to salute the flag. Let me see here, hold on. I think we do, Freddie is probably an attorney as well.
Mr. Chairman, can we suspend the rules, take item number 2?
Second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to take item number 2. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. You have done so. Please read item number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution up by Councilors Frank Capone, Peter Napolitano, Wayne Matusky, and Michael McLaughlin. A resolution regarding excessive airplane noise.
Counsel?
Refer this back to sponsor.
Second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to refer the item back to sponsor. All those in favor? All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so. Refer it back.
Mr. Chairman, can we suspend the rules, take item number 6?
So moved.
Suspend the rules. Take item number 6.
Item number 6. This is a resolution up by Council DePiero and the entire City Council that the Chief of Police and the owners of Chuck E. Cheese appear at this meeting to discuss the recent string of incidents.
Could we have representatives from Chuck E. Cheese, if they are in the audience, come before us? Also, could we have the Chief of Police before us? You can sit right on this side, gentlemen, right up here. When you're going to talk, just push the button. When it turns green, you're live. When it's red, you're off. If you could state all your names and titles, please. And if you have business cards, we need them to go to our clerk. I know you represent Chuck E. Cheese.
I do. How did you guess? Yes.
I seen you downstairs before.
Okay. It's Chris Duggan. I represent Chuck E. Cheese, and I'm here with the 3 members: Senior Vice President, the District Manager, and the General Manager of the store.
Okay. And
Yeah, Jim Brawley, Regional Vice President.
just turn it on so it turns green.
Okay,
There you go.
Jim Brawley, Regional Vice President for the
Thank you.
Northeast.
Adam Sheffrin, District Manager.
Mike Balboni, General Manager.
Good evening, Steve Mazie, Police Chief.
Thank you. Do we have questions, gentlemen? Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our invited guests, as you know, there's been a couple of incidents. I know that you can't have complete control over what other people do, but I don't know if it would be proper to hear from our chief first and then have the individuals.
Whatever your pleasure.
Well, Chief, if you would, there were 2 incidences that are of concern. Would you just overview response to the police department, what happened?
Well, I don't have the police reports to go into exact detail, but I know
okay.
we've had 2 separate incidents. Most recent one, a few weeks ago, involved a disturbance that led to a child being injured, I believe, on scene. And then there was one prior to that a few months back that involved about 5 individuals being arrested that turned into a almost, let's say, like a melee inside the complex.
Okay, and I think that one involved alcohol.
The first one, I believe, involved alcohol. I mean, they do not serve alcohol
Right.
Down there, but people had brought alcohol in, and that was what led to them being questioned of why they had alcohol.
Okay.
And then it just
Right.
turned bad from there.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So gentlemen, you can understand our concern. I'm sure that you have concern as well, because you want to operate a safe, friendly, family-oriented business. And I know you can't control what every individual does when they walk in your door, but if you could please, if you could identify, I guess, the first incident we had, from what I hear, and again, so I'll defer to you folks, that it was like a family birthday party, and somebody who was with the party had alcohol with them at some point in time. And so when you noticed that there was alcohol, what was the response? I guess I'm trying to figure out how you addressed it, if there's a way to address it better, or it is what it is, and we need to take some steps going forward to make sure we have the safety of the patrons, employees, the whole 9 yards. Because then the second one, I don't know what ended up happening, but I'm sure you do. So if you want to go ahead and just update us on what happened, how you responded, and we'll go from there, I guess.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, thank you all for having us here. We do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I will address your concerns, Councilor Capone, and then probably get some more information from the people who were here. As to the first incident in December, please understand, as you're correct, we have somewhere between 80 and 85,000 people that come through the store every year, and we are a place of public accommodation, and so we don't discriminate as to anybody. Anybody can come in, enjoy themselves, and with that, even the two incidents that you've referenced in those over 85,000 people or so is too many if we can avoid it. So we agree with that. The first incident was there was a party, and a birthday party, and one of the assistants for general managers noticed what she thought was someone carrying around alcohol. She did precisely the right thing, and that was to bring it to the attention of the detail officer, Officer Gonzalez, who was there. Officer Gonzalez went over, and I believe smelled the alcohol in the cup, asked the patron to leave. And that was pretty much all that happened inside. And then after the patron left outside, other people gathered, and that, of course, as you know, is under the control of the landlord, not CEC. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. This incident is still under investigation with us. We were unable so far to get a copy of the police report because it is under investigation, so the police couldn't release it to us under the public records law. But this was not an incident involving a party at all. This was something totally different. The store capacity is 477 patrons. There were roughly between 125, maybe 150 people in, so it was on a Monday. It was fairly light. And there were 15 CEC employees, uniformed employees that come in with the uniform on. It looks to us what happened was there were two sort of different groups of people. There were 4 women, one of whom was expecting by visual, and there were 2 other people, a husband or a couple with a child. As the gentleman was passing the 4 women
Was
who
this
were...
the second incident?
This is the second incident,
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes, in February, on President's Day, February 20th. As the second gentleman was passing 4 women who were near the salad bar, which is right out front, right near the entrance to the store. It appears that maybe there was a slight contact bump. We don't know if they knew each other or not. We have no indication. We don't know anything about it. Perhaps words were exchanged. The gentleman kept going on, and maybe more words were exchanged. It's unclear at this point. But something happened that one turned to the other. The woman who was expecting actually turned and tried to throw a punch. And the CEC employees became involved immediately. The expecting woman went over and actually found a box where you put the used cards and threw it and actually hit apparently a young girl who was with the group that she was in. All this took a matter of a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. So that's what we understand. And if there are questions now from the people who were present, Mr. Balboni, who's general manager, was present. He may be able to fill in some more details.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely. So I guess some of the preliminary questions I have is because obviously when you're in an open space like that, in a public space, people are allowed entry. You can't control everything that they do. However, the business that you're in, obviously you want it to be as safe environment as possible. Is there always a detail officer on, or are there certain days, hours where detail officers are?
Yeah, so our detail officers are on prime time, so Friday nights Saturdays afternoon, so noon to close, and then Sundays from noon to close also. All the other days are school nights, so we're not too
Okay.
busy on those.
Okay.
It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday starts at 5 p.m. and goes to close. Both the other days go from noon to close.
Okay. So with the first incident, it sounds like you addressed it as best you could. Went to the detail officer that was there and let them take care of the situation.
Yes.
And with the second one, I know a lot can happen in a short period of time. Were you there at the time?
I was there, yes.
If you could, whatever your own observations are, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, so just like he said that both groups started going at each other verbally. Once it got physical, that's when we had about 5 or 6 employees that were there. We held back both groups. They didn't really get close to each other, but they were still verbally talking and yelling at each other. We got one group out of the building, locked the doors up, and then one of the other groups were waiting. One hyperventilated, so she was waiting for medical support, and the police came in, and the daughter that was about 5 years old had a gash above her head, and from the same group, same party, threw something at her, and basically they just waited for medical support, and then we waited in there, and then they got taken out.
Okay. So, you know, obviously we want to avoid this type of stuff. And as far as your employees, are they trained in terms of, I don't know what kind of training goes into them in terms of if they see something like, when you see a verbal altercation, I don't know if they've been trained that, okay, you've got to respond right away, because a situation like that, if it doesn't extinguish right away, it's going to escalate.
Yeah.
And verbal becomes physical real fast. A couple of minutes, we had someone throwing a punch and throwing a box. So you need to jump on that stuff right away. You know, it gets to the point where you say, okay, I know it's Chuck E. Cheese, and you have to, okay, what are we doing here? That at a minimum, I'd want to make sure that your employees were properly trained, that they see something, you know, the slightest bit of confrontation, they're going to react to it right away. And it may not be them going to it, getting a manager. I don't know if you have, it might become a situation where we need to have a detail officer, you know, more present. I know that you're hitting your high areas, you know, overnights, weekends, that kind of stuff. This was a holiday, I think it was the Monday, the 20th?
Yeah, President's Day.
And the other one, the alcohol was on was in December. That was a weekend?
Yes, that was on a Saturday night.
Okay.
Just a quick question
Yep.
from the chair, counsel, excuse me, but what procedures do you have in play now for your employees if something was to actually go
For
down?
conflict altercations, we
Yeah.
do discuss that they do try, especially on verbal disputes, get them separated, get both parties as far apart as possible, and obviously get a manager, then we take.
Okay, so you do have something
yes,
in
and
place.
we do,
Okay.
from the beginning of training, from their.
Is that
work-
written protocol?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's on their first day of training that I do that training.
I'm sorry, and it's also a video, there's a video that goes with it, and
Okay.
part of the training for, it's called conflict resolution.
Okay, so they see a video, then they have, okay, some type of guidance and then.
Correct.
Okay. And also, just a quick question, is there video monitoring systems within the building?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And that runs 24/7, like, while you're
Yes.
open? Okay. Thank you.
There's, and just to clarify on that, there's 3 monitors also, we have the cameras, and we added some too. There's also 3 monitors, 3 sets of 3 monitors throughout the building in like a triangle shape that we show the guests that they're being videoed.
Is it,
So-
it's put up there that you're being monitored?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
have a
and
picture
it's
of it
also
if
on
you-
the entrance also.
Okay. To help,
Yeah, so
Get
right,
people to
right
act
when they walk
accordingly.
in, it says you're on camera.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Counselor?
All right. I'm going to yield the floor to my colleagues in case there are any other questions, but, you know, obviously we
Sure.
have concerns.
Councilman McLaughlin?
Good evening, gentlemen. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I do have a couple of thoughts, to be truthful, right? We're talking about Chuck E. Cheese, first of all. It's pretty sad that we even have to have this discussion right now. For you guys as a business and for us as a community, unfortunately, because of some knuckleheads that want to go down there and do something other than enjoy a child-friendly establishment, we're having these types of occurrences. The problem is that I see is we're having them more frequently across the nation, right? I just watched something in Saturday evening's news that something out in California occurred, where there was a big fight in one of the Chuck E. Cheese's out in California. Then if you YouTube Chuck E. Cheese, there's dozens of films that come up, unfortunately. So there's obviously some sort of a big problem with patrons that think that they're not there for the right reasons. I would like to know if you guys have increased police details since these incidents have occurred. Or I think you may have increased fire detail. And can you just explain why a fire detail versus a police detail being increased since the latest incident at the facility? I know it's probably crowd control, but I would have been more satisfied to see a police increase.
And Counselor, on that question, good question. If you could have the occupancy number, and are you actually adhering to the occupancy number now? We'd like to know that as well. And is that why the fire has been bumped up? Sure.
Right. I'll start to answer your question. As the detail officers, Officer Gonzalez is the officer who most frequently accepts the detail requests, as you know how these go. There are times when CEC has put in a request and it cannot be filled by Everett for whatever reason, and at that point then we go to a neighboring town, usually Medford. We were thinking about on really high occupancy days, if there's going to be a really busy time, maybe we have 2 detail officers if possible. We haven't considered exactly how to answer that yet, because there's all sorts of studies as to whether that's actually good or bad, or how people react to that. Sometimes it does exactly the opposite of what you hope. As to Mr. Chair, you asked about the occupancy deed. It's 477.
Yep.
And so we had, I think, 125 people in on that day.
Yep.
And
No, I
so-
don't think you guys are really seeing 477 probably at any one given time in the facility, right? So overcrowding isn't a problem, right?
No.
That's why I'm confused by, if you were seeing 500 come in, then you would need a fire detail for crowding issues. You're getting a detail for security purposes. Again, sad to say that we need to have this conversation, but so that's why I'm a little confused why the fire detail versus the police detail if we're talking about security and not numbers of crowding issue.
Well, to answer that question, the second part of your question, and that was that the deputy fire chief asked if we wouldn't mind in the short term, and so we said, fine.
You could go through the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The deputy fire chief requested recently that we add it, and at least until we get a handle on it, we said, okay. So it's nothing more than that.
Are you guys in support of switching that from a fire detail to a police detail? I mean, for me, right, I'm thinking we have 100 people in there and something happens. And all due respect, I love my firefighters. What's a firefighter going to do at that point, right? We need a police officer that's going to control 100 people in the facility.
Well, yes, I mean, Mr. Chair, I agree, and we were a little, we shared your concern about the firefighters, but we're trying to get along with everybody. And so we're not sure that that's going to last long-term, and we're certainly open to study and to study this problem again and figure out if another detail officer is needed. Remember, we're talking about a background where, over several years we've had, really 2 incidents, or 3, over years and years, and we have 80,000 people in. It's unfortunate that 2 of them happen to within 8 weeks of each other, or so.
Now, on that, Counselor, I'm going to interject here. On that statement alone, you said there was only 3 incidents there. Has there been any other incidents that have been, written down as an incident report or something to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the answer to that question. When I'm talking about incidents, I'm talking about what that were called 911 calls.
Okay.
So now, did somebody
Small-
lose a wallet or?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. But
Has there been any other incidents where it may have led to something like this in the
not
past?
to my knowledge, and I'll yield now to anybody else who wants to.
I mean, I think there's been arguments have sprouted up, and, to Mike and his team, they generally get there and separate it, so. you know, they haven't escalated, but people have disagreements, bump into each other kind of thing, normal public stuff, but, you know, at least Mike and the team got there to separate it.
Okay, and how many of those on occasion, do you know? Are those recorded? Are they written reports and stuff like that when that happens?
Only if we really call the police.
Okay, so that's one of the-
911 deals.
All right.
But it doesn't happen too frequently. I've been in this location for a year and a half, and these are the only two major situations that we've had. But we usually get people out of the building as soon as we even think anything could happen.
Thank you for that. Counselor?
I do know that you guys are going down to another meeting right after this one, correct, to deal with the entertainment license. That is where I'm kind of lost with this, because there's only an entertainment license in place for you guys, and I don't think that you guys should suffer any sort of major penalty, because it's not you guys that doing something at fault. It's unfortunately the patrons that are coming in here that are causing a problem. But I think that we need to really talk about safety and making sure that they're right. If 477 people were to show up on a specific day and something is to happen, now we have a much bigger problem on our hands than we do if there's 100 people in the facility, right? So that's where I'm kind of at right now, because I don't think that, you know, you guys should sort of be penalized in any way, shape, or form, because I don't think that you guys have done anything irresponsible or negligent. That's why I'm hoping that we can work on getting more of a police detail on a regular basis. Like that week was school vacation week, right? Maybe we should have a police detail there on school vacation weeks, knowing that there's going to be more people there on rapid on a school vacation week, or in the summertime during certain hours. That, you know, when obviously during the day you don't need a police detail, all kids are in school, right? If there's a problem happening at 1 in the afternoon, then there's I don't know what to tell them, to be honest. But that week was school vacation week, and I just think that, or hope that we can work collaboratively together to get more police presence on certain key days or weeks of the year to keep everybody safe, right, and not to have an ongoing issue, right? Because the December incident, 2 officers were involved in that. 5 people got arrested, right? And Chief, was either of our officers hurt in that incident? Was there was some sort of a fight, correct?
I think some officers, no one long-term. I think they might have had some minor
Bruises and
banged
cuts.
around and bumped up, but nothing serious.
And that's thankfully that occurred, right? And thankfully not one of our police officers really did get hurt. But the fact that the possibility was there is alarming to us, and I'm sure alarming to you guys, because you don't want to see anybody get hurt from your facility, whether it's a patron or employee or public safety official. So I would like to try to work more collaboratively with you guys on that type of proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. And then if something happens, then, hey, listen, you know, you can only control what you can control, to be truthful. But I'm hoping that we can do that. Are you guys would be agreeing to that, to be able to put police on at certain key? I know it's tough, a 5 to 9 shift, Chief, right? They're not, all of our officers don't want to take a 4-hour minimum when you can go out and get a daytime shift or whatever the case is, especially with all the construction that's going on in the city right now. So, you know.
A lot of factors play into it. You know, day of the week, how much other work is going on, and there's a lot of construction and other work going on in the community. But I mean, the big piece that's missing from the discussion is personal responsibility on behalf of the patrons. And you know, there's a problem today with, you know, social media and these incidents is getting play a little too much. But people need to take responsibility for their personal actions, and some people don't want to do that, unfortunately.
Where is the closest other facility to you guys for the greater Boston area? For if you were to draw a circle around the perimeter of Boston, where else is there another Chuck E. Cheese that's proximity to that, say, that diameter of
Say
Boston?
Danvers is probably one of the closer ones.
And then anything on the south shore?
No, not really.
So we're the only one in the greater Boston area, per se, within
what's
a
the closest?
reasonable amount of distance. We're the
Yes.
only one in the greater Boston area.
Danvers, Burlington, and Natick are surrounding ones.
Okay, so Everett is closest at that point to the greater Boston area. Okay, and again, guys, you guys have been there a long time. You really haven't had any other incidents down there other than the 2, but the 2 are alarming enough that we need to have a discussion with you guys. And I'm pleased that you guys are willing to come to the table and talk as a team and work as a group effort to do what we can to prevent these from happening in the future. Hopefully, we never have another one. But I would like to talk about a police detail more frequently on certain peak days and shifts. And I don't know if you guys can do that, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if we can do that tonight. Or okay, but that's really where I'm going with my discussion tonight. Thank you guys for coming to appear, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Through
Mr.
the-
Chairman.
If I may, too, we-
Actually, hold on.
I'm sorry, we
gentlemen.
added some for the spring break week already, just
You already put
for
that in.
that.
We're not done as yet. So, Chief, just a quick question. The incidents that transpired, if there were there people that were actually arrested in the incidents, or?
The first incident months ago, multiple people were arrested.
How many? About
I think
five?
it was five. It was
Okay.
five was the number.
And do you recall where they were from? Because I don't think any of them were from
I don't think
Everett.
they were local. No, I don't think any of them were local. No, none of them are local.
Okay. And then,
It gets, I mean, he hit it on the head as well. I mean, you're talking about.
That's what I'm trying to
There's
do.
one store
yeah,
in Metro Boston, basically.
and
It's-
everybody's coming
It's a
to-
large population to draw from.
yeah. Thank you for that.
Yep.
I want to actually just make a motion. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the discussion we're having. We do have some folks that were invited up, council members, et cetera, and general public. So just so that the organization can understand maybe some of the other issues that the public
Well,
might have, we could open it to the
open
public
it,
again. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
We'll open this up to the public now. Would there be anyone that would like to speak? That's up. Oh, actually, let's take a vote on that to open it up to the public.
Make a motion that we open this discussion up to the public and my fellow colleagues.
Motion made and seconded to open this up to the public. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so. Anyone in the public audience would like to speak? Councilwoman, just state your name just for the record.
Councilwoman Cynthia Sani, at large.
Thank you.
Through you, I just had a question through the gentleman. When people walk in, do you have any security, like checking their bags, what they bring in or anything like that? So-
We have a kid check person, so they don't check bags, but they're there to stamp the child with the parents so that they match up when they leave. So everybody who comes together leaves together.
So when the incident they had with alcohol coming in, how was that brought in notice when they were walking through the door?
Yeah, we're not sure. We don't know if they hid it in the coat or whatever. It's when the manager identified it from, and, you know, Ricky, I know you just left, you weren't there, but the assistant manager just really smelled it on the gentleman. And then she went over and smelled the cup. I don't know if it was a Chuck E. Cheese cup or not, but went over and smelled, and the gentleman, when he was talking to her, smelled like alcohol.
Okay.
So that's when she went and got the officer.
Okay. So that was my concern, just when somebody's walking in and they just making sure that they're not bringing it in and noticing it and walking through, that your gentlemen, your workers are making sure they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And you mentioned that they do get training on the with the computer. Is there hands-on also training?
The training on, we do have the video training, and then also we do tests for the training.
You do tests, physical
Yes,
tests?
yes.
Okay. And through the chief, no one was charged on the last incident? As of yet, or?
You know, I don't know, I was out of town when that incident occurred, and I'm not really sure what the results are if a complaint was filed. Sometimes we don't make an arrest, and further investigation takes place, and then we summons people into court. Let me see if any of my colleagues know. Okay,
Okay.
so probably not.
All right, that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public audience would like to speak? Any other councilors have questions? That portion, we'll close it. Motion made and seconded, close public. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? You have done so. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad the approach that you're taking. Obviously, it's your business. It's your livelihood. You're not looking to do anything to jeopardize that in any way. We all want a safe location for the patrons. I'm glad to learn that you have training already in place for employees. And what I would say, the concerns I would have is, obviously, we'll continue to monitor it. It has been in business for a number of years. Fortunately, there's only been two, issues that got to this level. Unfortunately, they were within a short period of time with each other. Brings an extra eye to it. So I would just ask that make sure that the training that you have for your employees is sufficient at this particular point in time. Maybe in light of what we've seen, take another eye at it, see if there's something that could be done to better train folks. I don't know what your staffing is in the organization, but you might want to take a look at minimum staffing numbers just for safety. And we'll continue to monitor it both from the outside and from the inside. And if it looks like this is some sort of an ongoing issue that we're having, might have to make the move to look for additional detail officers.
I want it now.
So,
We need it now.
those would be my recommendations.
Councilman McLaughlin?
I would agree with my colleague from Ward 1, other than the fact that I would like to see you guys step up police patrol at certain peaks of the year. And you guys know what the peaks are: school vacations, weekend hours that are in evening. If there's a specific holiday during the week, anytime that's going to draw in a large crowd of people, that is when I would like to see a police detail on site for everybody's interest. Not to chastise you guys or say you did anything wrong, but just to keep everybody kind of orderly and doing what they should be doing at Chuck E. Cheese, which is enjoying a friendly establishment. So hopefully that you guys will be able to do that, and maybe periodically you can just give us an update of how things are going down there. Just a friendly email or whatever the case might be, just to kind of let us know how things are going or details are being filled or whatever the case is. Would be really good to just keep everybody in the loop and just keep everybody on the same page. And the more collaboration, the more open work that we all have working together, less of an incident occurring in the future that is undesirable for anybody. And that's really only my recommendations to you guys. And I appreciate you guys coming up tonight and being open with us. Thank you.
All set with that. Through the chair, on the details, right now, just so I'm clear, you have one on Friday from 5 to close.
Yeah, 5 to 11.
Then you have one on Saturday and one on Sunday.
Yeah, from 12 p.m.
Okay.
to close, Saturday and
Oh,
Sunday.
would you consider beefing that up if we mentioned we want to actually have that done? So
Yeah, we could probably discuss those weekends. During the weekdays, we don't really need it.
there's nothing on
Yeah, there's nothing really going
nothing
on.
really going on the weekends, right?
Yeah,
I mean
weekdays.
weekdays.
Yeah.
Unless-
Just on the weekend.
To the council, unless school's out.
Yeah, so like
So
on
like-
Monday holidays, Friday holidays, that will be definitely detailed.
So school breaks,
School
you'll be looking at
breaks, I can.
holidays.
Holidays, I will make sure that we have a detail officer
Okay.
requested.
One or
Depends on when the holidays would be and what we think we're gonna need.
okay.
April vacation is a little slower than our February vacation, so definitely one would be fine.
Sure. Reason why I ask is, and Chief, this is directed at you, reason why I'm asking is because we had a detail officer there that was actually, he was breaking up, in process of breaking things up, and weren't they, did other officers from other forces come in and actually try to help
Well,
out?
we have another officer that's assigned down in the mall area on
Yep.
a regular basis, so I believe in that first incident, that officer went over to assist, if I remember.
Yeah, both
Paul,
instances,
yeah.
he was there.
So there was two
Yeah.
that was,
Yeah,
okay.
both instances
mean,
were there.
Just so, I mean, I want to be clear on it as well, so.
Yeah. I mean, but
We're not just sending one guy in, and then we have a backup right there, it's right on the
Well, if an
problem.
officer calls for assistance, I mean,
They're coming.
The cavalry will come either way.
Now, did Medford and State show up as well?
I think there were other units from other jurisdictions, ended up coming to the scene as well in that first incident, yes.
All right, so it got a little bit out of hand, maybe?
Well, I mean, you got multiple people involved, and if the officers start getting a little outnumbered, I mean, it's not
Sure.
a good situation, especially around young families.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, obviously, it's, I think it's apparent that's a rarity for the type of business from what we've talked about tonight. So I don't see that happening on a regular basis.
So there'll be one inside, one out anyway, so that we're covered.
For most of the time, there's someone in the area.
All right.
Yeah.
If I may too, there's also Fridays at times has a detail, I believe, on Saturdays.
Correct. Some of the
and
other
Sundays.
businesses, yeah.
So that I think they've helped each
Yeah,
other.
we go to
in the
them
past.
whenever we don't get filled. Sometimes they're there. We can go and ask him to come help us.
All right. I'd like you to take this all into consideration. If there's any way that maybe we can get a letter back from you, sir, that would
Certainly.
be great, if you could just address it. And if we can all have cards before you leave, or at least information to the clerk, so that we can actually keep in touch with you.
Sorry, my card's in my bag, I'll drop it off on my way out.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you. Excuse the customary thanks. Thank you
So
for
moved.
appearing.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And on the piece, it's up to you. You want to refer it back, or you want to hold it over for 3 months, see how it's going?
We could lay it over, waiting for the communication.
I was going to
and go
say,
from there.
be honest, either way, I'm going to ask for something in probably September or after the summer, see how things go
Sure.
over the course of the summer. So
You want to do one during the summer, or you want to do? You want to just we could just reintroduce? Okay.
okay,
Send it
so
back.
I'm going to refer it back to
Yeah.
sponsor, and then we'll work collaboratively together
Second the motion.
beyond these chambers.
Motion made and seconded to refer back to sponsor. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so. Thank you for appearing. If we could just have the card, that would be great. Thank you. Freddie, what's the next one? We got the chief here, too. Yeah, you know what? We got, he's here for a few, so go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, can we make a motion to take item number 3 off of the calendar, please?
Motion made and seconded to take item number 3 off the calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, item number 3. This is a resolution up by Council Frank Capone that the city council respectfully requests that the mayor consider funding the required traffic study in furtherance of request to eliminate heavy trucking on 2nd Street.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could please have the city engineer and a representative from the mayor's office before us.
Could we have the chief of staff and the city engineer before us, please? Gentlemen, thank you for appearing. If you could just state your names and titles for the record.
Kevin O'Donnell, Chief of Staff for Mayor Maria.
Thank you.
Julius Ofori, city engineer.
Thank you. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you two, I guess. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I'll make it very, very brief. When Mr. O'Rourke was here, we were talking about trying to get a survey together, a traffic study. I think he had told me that it was approved. The funding was approved. I don't know how far along that path we are. I don't know if, Mr. Donald, if you would be able to speak to that, or I don't know where we are in the process.
I would defer to our engineer, Mr. Alfieri, because there's a couple of other contributing variables here that kind of make us pump the brakes a little bit, if you will, in terms of other projects that are going on. And part of this traffic study, the way it was drawn up and written, if we were to expend the funds now to do it, we could limit our options, whereas there are other projects going on in studies throughout the city in conjunction with the Mass Department of Transportation in the Wind Resorts project that would potentially give us even more options once those studies are completed. But Mr. Alfieri could certainly articulate on that.
Okay, all right. So if you wouldn't mind just to explain.
Yeah,
what's happening.
last time I came down here, I did speak briefly on 2nd Street. The reason why we had a discussion regarding Webster and how much it's costing us to do.
Sure.
So what I did say to the council was that on 2nd Street we did install a bollard on 2nd Street in order to slow the evaluation. What we're waiting for is the studies being done by Wayne, and we also have a consultant that's doing a peer review. So what I did was to hold it up, because if I spend what's been proposed here, it's more or less like I'm throwing the money away. So as soon as the Wayne studies and approval from our consultant, then we can move forward and do what is being proposed here.
Okay. And do you have any idea, I know you're not doing the study, but do you have any idea, rough time frame that they might anticipate that'll be completed?
Not as of this moment, you know. That's why we did what we had to do to put the bollard on Second Street. You know.
Yeah, and that's helped.
Yeah,
That's absolutely helped.
Right. The reason why is because there's so much stuff going on within Broadway. You don't have a left turn or right turn. You know, with the new design, you have all those components there. You know, so I would think that I can check with our consultant to see if there's going to be like an update on this project.
Okay.
But we do have the money, but we just held it up.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we'd like to
appreciate that.
maximize the options with that if there are
Okay.
potentially more down the road.
All right, that sounds good. No, I appreciate it. And the bollard has absolutely helped. That streetlight, you probably know, was getting knocked down all the time. Trucks were coming up on the sidewalk. There's, the day it went up, there were a couple of notches in that bollard. They've hit it. So I think they've kind of gotten the idea it's a little bit better over there. So if we're looking at these other plans that are being done for design issues to try to do what the best thing is down there, that's fine. So, you know, I'll hold off on this. I'm glad we got the bollard, and if we need to address it sooner, we'll get on top of it. But I can always interact with you
Yes.
from time to time just to see where we're at. So, thank you. I appreciate the input.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Fury. Mr. Fury, who is doing the master plan for the city of Everett for the traffic study? Hopefully not the ones that did Webster and Church Street.
No, we have Weston Sampson. They did a peer review for it.
Okay, because we seen what happened on Church and Webster Street with a 10 by 10. I can't imagine the city of Everett as a whole. Okay, that's really good to know that they're on board, and they're reviewing the whole entire city as a whole. At this
No,
point?
the contract there was just for the traffic and also pedestrian, you know, on Broadway. Whatever has something to do with transportation, that's what Weston Sampson's contract is about.
Okay. Do you have a copy of their contract by chance?
I don't. It's with planning.
Their contract is under planning?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to request a copy of their contract. Mr. O'Donnell, just briefly, you said that if we wait some further time, we might be able to incorporate some other projects with this study. Is that, did I misunderstand that? Or?
Well, probably gives us more options. So in other words, if we were to go ahead and conduct the plan now, and we're giving, say, 3 options, but at the end of the Department of Transportation and/or the wind study, if other changes are suggested, that could potentially give us 4 more options in addition to what we would uncover. So we want to maximize the outcome of the study to the city's best benefit. So we feel it's probably best to take a back seat, see how everything else pans out, and then gives us more options to choose from, and so we get the best bang for our buck out of that, and it's a one and done move.
What is the wind study incorporate? Do you know, Mr. O'Donnell? Or Mr. Fury?
The wind actually incorporates, Dexter. We have Dexter, you have Robin, you have Beecham, and you also have a section of Second Street also. The study we have right now is just Second Street only.
Okay.
So that might not help us very well, So if we can incorporate what we have here with what Wayne has, that would help the city. And in future, we can do a citywide traffic study.
Sure. And when do we anticipate the wind study being done, or the third parties? I'm sorry, the other.
Which are Weston Sampson?
Not Weston Sampson wind study, or the Mass
Department of Transportation.
Mass DOT's.
No, anytime you do a traffic exclusion, Mass DOT is usually involved, because some of it might be approved with Mass DOT with the blessing of the city. Okay. But in terms of time frame, it's very difficult for me to give you a time frame here because there's a lot of happenings within that area now that it's been looked into by Weston Sampson.
Do we think, and I'm sure you can't, but roughly 6 months, a year?
I mean, you can.
Not gonna hold your feet to that.
I can
just-
say 6 months, but you're not gonna hold me up to it.
No, absolutely. So within the next year, we're gonna see something come together, and Forward should be able to work on it together over the course of the coming year.
Sure.
Yes.
Fair enough to say. Very good.
We're all in agreement, there's always room for improvement. We just want to maximize that
No, and
to
I-
our best benefit.
I could not agree more, absolutely. And I think that having, seeing all plans on the table and trying to work collaboratively is never a bad thing. I'm just wondering overall where we were kind of going as we see so much changing in the city on a daily basis. Every day we wake up, there's a lot changing. And that's kind of where I was going with this, but I appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Excuse customary, thanks. Thank you, guys. On the piece, refer back to sponsor.
I make a motion that we take item number 8 off of the calendar, please. No. What do we have coming off the calendar?
4.
Do we take a vote on that?
We take item number 4.
Item number 4.
Yes. Motion made and seconded to take item number 4 from the calendar.
All right, item number 4. This is a resolution by Council Rosa DeFlorio that the mayor or his representative appear at this meeting to give an update on the new 311.
Could we have Councilwoman Rosa DeFlorio before us as well? With the quickness. If you could just state your names for the piece, please, and title. Councilwoman?
Council Rosa DeFlorio, representing Ward 5.
Steve Sapino, Executive Director of Health and Human Services.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
The questions I have in regards to the 311 number is, could you tell me the hours of operations?
Sure, and just to be clear, I don't run the 301, it's run by Chad Luongo. However, I was helpful in setting it up, and Chad took my position after, so that's why I'm here, answering for Chad, 'cause he had to work his evening job. But just to let you know, 301 it operates the same hours as City Hall, and which is 8 in the morning till 7:30 on Monday night, 8 till 5, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 to 7:30 on Thursday, and on Friday, we're actually open too, from 8 to 12.
Okay, what happens in case of emergencies, like snowstorms, or if you're shutting down a street, usually you do the reverse 911, is that correct?
That's twofold. But aside from the reverse 911, we also have a system in place where, for emergency situations, we assign staff members and we could forward the calls to their cell phones. So it's essentially, for the duration of the emergency calling, there's someone, you would actually be able to speak to a staff member, and it can be directed to the proper channels.
So is that also in regards to when we're having a snowstorm?
Yes, it is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone calls during the snowstorm saying, I have to put my trash out, are they picking up trash tomorrow? You would be able to answer
get
that
the
call?
answer.
Yes, they'll get a staff member, a live staff member, and they'll be able to
Okay,
let them
and
know.
all other times, obviously, there's the other emergency numbers that we have that they can still call. So this doesn't take effect on the 911. That has nothing to do with the 911, this 311 number. I just want people to understand
No,
that.
this is more informative. You know what I mean?
Informative.
And it's like when people call during the week for anything, you know what I mean? They answer every single question, and they're well-versed in it, and to be honest with you, it's been very successful. It's really done well. I mean, during the storm, they got a lot of calls. We helped a lot of elderly people, a lot of people that, complaining that their streets weren't plowed well enough. So it's really been,
By
in
the way, I
early
requested
stages.
this number 12 years ago when I first became the council. It took 12 years, but that's okay. Thank you.
It's a process. And I also just want to add, we did send out with some of the tax bills and other restorative bills, information on this, as well as the social media postings, the newspaper, ECTV, public announcements. So the staff have really worked hard to get that word out there. But I know we kind of, in terms of the emergencies and everything, that was kind of something that after we got a lot of this information out, that we said, hey, you know, we need to do something in case of these situations. So that's why we had the numbers forwarded. So, and that would be the case in any type of emergency as they go along. So knock on wood, there won't be any more snow.
Now, you can also download the app, from what I'm reading here quickly.
Yes.
On the iPhone or the Android, is that correct?
Yes, yes, but I
So
want
for
to,
informational purposes only to the people that are watching, do you think we could put something like this on ECTV or,
oh, sure.
yeah, just to,
And I just want to clarify, though, on the iPhone app, though, we have a 311, other communities have a 311. So if you're out of the Everett city limits, and say you're in Assembly Row, and you hit 311, you're going to ping to Somerville's 311 center if you're on the cell phone.
Right.
So you have to be within our tower coverage.
Within our tower
With our
coverage,
city
right.
limits, yes.
yeah.
So it's
Okay.
almost like when you call 911, the state picks up, they kick you right to the PD.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
same thing. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any further question.
No, that was a great
Thank you.
piece. I know that you've been working hard on this, Councilwoman, and it's a great piece, so I know we have a couple of questions, so.
Thank you for appearing. and greatly
Councilman
appreciate it.
McLaughlin.
I too would like to congratulate Councilor DeFleur. I know she's worked hard on this for years, longer than I've been on the city council. So I do have a couple of questions for you guys. One is, on the weekends, if we get hit with a snowstorm on a Saturday or a Sunday, is this 311 staffed for concerns, complaints, questions from residents in the city?
Yes, well, once the emergency is called for the duration of the emergency, we have staff on for certain periods of time. Throughout the whole, just, you know, the staff members will rotate, but throughout the course of the storm, we will have, the calls will be forwarded to their phones, and they would address the issues as they come in. Yes, we did have, we had quite a number of calls, especially through the first one, so it worked out well. So it wasn't going to a voicemail or to an email or anything like that. You were actually getting an active staff member.
And that's worked out so that somebody then gets the Monday off or something to that effect, if they're coming in on a Saturday or Sunday to be able to man 311 program?
They don't come in here physically, Mike. They don't come in here physically. It gets forwarded to their
It's
cell phone.
forwarded to their cell
So
phone.
sitting in the comfort of their own home watching TV, and a call that comes 301, you know, say you call, hey, I'm Mike McLaughlin,
Sure.
I live at, you know, XYZ, and they didn't do, you know, and that's how it works.
And then they would be able to reach out to ISD, DPW, wherever the appropriate agency that needs to be touched, or department.
Okay. No, and I do. I think overall this is a great program, and I've seen it work firsthand, and I think it's really done well. My only other question is, which is a little confusing, is you guys then incorporated the mayor's office number into this 311 program. So there is no longer a phone number for the mayor's office, because the mayor's office used to be 394-2270. That no longer is the mayor's office. That goes directly to 311. So there's no longer a public number for the mayor's office? Or is every call going to the mayor's office?
Well, Mike, and I'll answer that because I was involved with when we were selecting the number. You have to get a main number, so to speak, to work this 301 off of. You know what I mean? So we chose the mayor's line because the mayor's office, because that's where the majority of these calls come to. So the purpose of this is to stop this, you know, these calls from going up there, to be dealt with by the 301 folks. They send in a system called Q Alert, which goes to every department and it gets answered. You know what I mean? So if it's a DPW issue, code enforcement issue. So if you want to call the mayor's office, so if you call the mayor's line, okay, the 394-2270, you're going to get the folks that answer 301. But if you say, hi, you know, like with Mayor DiMaria, they'll transfer you up to Dolores, who will then, you know, take the call accordingly. You know, whether the mayor's waiting for the call or if it's.
But do you think that we should have put a separate number in as the hub for this program? Should we have taken a separate number? I know that just last week, right, some incident occurred with the phone lines at the police station, right? And I actually learned that there was several non-emergency business lines for the police station. And they were listed on social media. Should we have taken maybe one of those numbers and created that as the hub of the program?
Well,
just to keep it kind of separated, because at this point, you know, now everything is filtered into the mayor's office.
Well, excuse me for interrupting, but not necessarily, Mike, because the reason we put that number in like that was because the majority of these calls came to the mayor's office. So that's why we made it the 301 hub number. You know what I mean? Because what we're trying to do is train people that haven't had 301 for, you know, 100 and something years. Now, you know, it's very hard, if you're used to calling 394-2270, you know, and we're talking about, you know, more so than the younger generation, but the elderly folks, you know what I mean? A lot of them like to call the mayor's office and say, hey, you know, there's a pothole in front of my street, there's this, there's that. So it'd be very hard for them sometimes, you know, it's a little tougher for them to understand this 311, they think it might be emergency because of 911, you know what I mean? So we said, let's make it simplify and just put the mayor's.
What do other cities, I'll be honest with you guys, right? And not for me specifically, but you can understand hopefully that this could become a really, a political football. And everything is now going into the mayor's office. The mayor's office now is filtering every phone call in the city of Everett and spreading it out across to whatever department is
Council,
appropriate.
to that question there.
No,
Hold on 1 second. To that question there. Now, when you dial 311, that it gets filtered into their call system, which is downstairs, I believe.
Yes, it goes to the call center downstairs.
In the greeting center is right next to it. So those are the people that it's going into.
Yes.
Just for
And the 394-2270 goes to that center as well, because we just wanted to make it easier, like I said, on the folks that.
So everything's funneled right through 311 downstairs?
Exactly.
Okay. And that actually will end up, it's sort of like, yeah, it's sort of like having an operation.
Like having a switchboard operator,
Yeah,
exactly.
switchboard operator. Okay. Just needed clarification. Go ahead, Councilman.
Sure, thank you. I just see this as becoming a political football, to be honest with you guys, and I just wish that we hadn't combined the two of them together. It has no effect on the mayor or the administration or anybody, but on any future mayor or anything, I just think that we should have tried to keep these two operations completely separate from one another. Somebody may or may not feel comfortable calling the mayor's office for whatever reason that may be out there. But they want to call 311. Now they see
They do call 311.
but now they see the two of them combined together, because now the mayor's number that everybody knows has been the mayor's number for as long as I've been alive is now the hub number for 311.
Well, part of our rationale behind that is generally, by and large, the majority of the people feel more comfortable calling the 2270 number.
And understand, if you're new to the community, or if you're somebody that always wanted to call 301, you're gonna call 301. It goes to 301. We, like Kevin just explained, it was more for the folks that got used to calling 2270 for 100 years, for every, you know, pothole, you know, any type of, you know, issue that we deal with, that, you know, is normal for us to deal with.
Councilwoman DeFlorio, did you have?
Yeah, thank you,
something to
Mr. Basically, what's happening is this is going into a cubicle downstairs, even the mayor's calls. If I call and I say I want to speak to the mayor, they're going to transfer me to the mayor's office.
Right.
So the people you have downstairs are qualified to understand where to send this call. In other words, someone calls, they say they have a pothole, these people are qualified to know to call city services, obviously.
Correct.
If somebody calls for an issue, if I call and I say, you know, I got my tax bill and it's really high, they know to send me to the assessor's office.
Exactly.
So it's almost like years ago, they had an operator that was there, and there was a switchboard operator, and they would just send the calls to whoever it was necessary. But this doesn't mean that people can't call the mayor's office and ask for the mayor. It's the same thing.
correct.
It's like going through a switchboard. You call 617-394-2270 and say, I'd like to speak to someone in the mayor's office.
Yes.
So is that correct?
Yes, that'll be
Okay.
dispatched just like any other request to the
All right.
proper, you know, yeah.
Okay,
But
thank
do
you.
you guys agree that it could have been just kept completely separate onto another airline of the city, and just kept it separate functions of the two operations, right? Do you guys agree with that?
Well, we don't think it would have necessarily diminished the call volume to the mayor's office. I mean, I think it probably,
And I know,
like Steve said, it probably has decreased it a little bit because some people just choose to go directly to 311.
And my only other question on this, and that's fine, we can talk about that, otherwise, that's fine. Do we keep track of the 311 calls that are coming in some sort of a data log?
Yes, we do, yes.
And is that public access, or can we get a report on that, say quarterly, or what, you know, maybe every 3 months, or whatever the case might be, as far as how many calls are now filtering into this 311 program for X, Y, and Z department or classification, or whatever you want to call it as?
Yes, we keep an ongoing tally of everything that comes in, so.
Every call, the calls are all, you can have the number of calls, and like I said, what happens is the call comes in, we put in a system called Q Alert, which is tied into everybody in the city, and it goes to the proper department, and those Q Alerts, for example, let's just say pothole on Main Street, Chad as the director reviews those, and reviews them very diligently, and then what happens is, he looks, and he sees pothole on Main Street is filled by Kevin Noonan, let's just say, and it's closed out, and it goes into a big report. You have a big report on that as well, so it can tell you how many calls have come in, what they've come in for, and stuff like that.
And when they got resolved.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I'm looking for as the council, right? We get the same calls, a majority of the same calls that you guys receive in City Hall, we get at home or on our cell phones or whatever the case is. So I'm looking to see if we can collaborate efforts together to be able to get a report, however my colleagues want to do that, so that we can kind of keep all the information gathered so that everybody's on the same page. And that's why I'm asking if that's a reasonable request that we can do maybe quarterly or however my colleagues want to proceed. But I think that's important to
No, that's,
inform us.
Counselor, that's reasonable. I think if we, maybe, now, with the Q, with the
alert.
Q, Mr. Spino, with the Q, so we can just basically, just request out, say, 3 months at a time.
Yeah,
or
you can say quarterly,
Sure.
and they can run the report for you. Chad will be happy to,
Yeah, I mean,
Chad will happy
I
to
think
do it.
that's what we're looking for here.
And it'll tell you, like I said, it tells you every single incident that's called in, closed
Yeah.
out, what's been responded to,
I mean, it's a great program.
Oh, it really is.
It's a great program because you know the call coming in, and you're tracking it, and then the result. That's it.
That's it.
So,
We know it's getting
I
done.
mean, yeah, that would be good. If for a quarterly report, make a motion for a quarterly report from them, that's all.
I'll make a motion that we have quarterly reports from the 311 program of all data pertaining to that quarter.
Yep. Excuse the customary thanks.
Thank you.
Motion on that, Councilwoman, did you want anything further to happen with it, or you just wanted to
No,
bring it? Okay. All right, we'll just get a quarterly report on it.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
If we could as well, the information sheet that was handed to us, if we could refer that to ECTV for publication.
Oh, yeah.
purposes, that'd be
There you
great.
go. All right, so the motion would be to refer this informational sheet to ECTV, as well as get a quarterly report from the Q program.
Right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so.
Could we suspend the rules and take item number 8?
Suspend the rules, take item number 8. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, item number 8 is a resolution by Council Peter Napolitano that the Director of Public Works and Director of Water Department appear to explain what happened to all the fire hydrant snowflakes.
Councilman Napolitano? Before we get into it here, I just want to read, this is on item number 8, Johnny. Let's see here. This is from Ernie LaRavia, and Ernie has also suggested, okay. Good morning. My response to the hydrant marker not being installed this winter is that 75% of the markers were destroyed, vandalized, and this act is destructive of city property. The city spent over $12,000 for those markers. My concern is when snapped in half, there is a risk of injury. There is a large spring attached to the rod, and when pulled back, someone can get hurt. After the last snow event, the fire department was out clearing the snow around the hydrants as well as good neighbors. Ernie, let's see, has also suggested looking a more durable replacement, as the markers, when broken, pose a serious public safety threat, as they are an attractive nuisance to children. Playing with the broken markers with this spring attachment could result in an injury. Also, Jerry Navarro will be unable to attend tonight due to a prior commitment, and he said, whatever you need, just reach out to him. I have him on another piece as well. I talked to him on my piece, so all you gotta do is give him a call. He'll say whatever you need. Councilman?
Okay. Well, again, my main concern is that, again, we just spent $12,000 on, and that's just on equipment. That's not factoring in the man-hours it takes to install them, and obviously now the man-hours it took to uninstall them. Now, like all of us in this room, we travel through many other communities as well. The only community I've seen that has removed them is Everett. And this is what caused a flag for me, not to be, not to, throw a pun in. But I got calls from people. I mean, we remember those of us that were here for the blizzard of 2015, remember what it was like. The last major storm we had, if we had a back-to-back storm like we did back 2 years ago, those hydrants could have very easily been buried. Okay, now, fortunately, our weather seems to change just like that. We go from having 3 feet of snow to 70-degree weather. But that's not going to always be the case. And the thing is that I'm not aware that we had abandoned this approach. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to find out is where are we going from here? Are they actively pursuing a different type of replacement? I hear a letter that recommends it or suggests it, but it doesn't state that that's what they're doing. And again, if 75% were damaged, why did they remove the remaining 25%? Granted, I agree, and I've seen this driving to work. The kids pull it back, the spring gets a little bent out. It's a novelty factor. But like anything else, the more you have it out there, the less of a novelty it becomes. After a while, they tend to, becomes invisible. You get so used to seeing it, you're no longer noticing it anymore. And that's the purpose of these things, is so they're noticeable when the time is necessary. Major snowstorm, we've seen what our fire department has gone through just in the last week, up on Central Ave, out on Ferry Street. I mean, I was up for the Ferry Street High Street fire. That weather was frigid. The last thing we need our guys to do when they get called out, and again, granted, having the fire department out to clear the hydrants is assuming that they have time to do that. But during a major snowstorm, during heavy snowfall, they may not have that luxury. They get enough on their plate just to get their equipment in place and get the fire out and save lives, let alone having to dig out a fire hydrant or even try to locate the fire hydrant in the first place. So I would like to ask that we extend this over, because this really doesn't give us an answer. It just explains what happened to them, but it doesn't give us any idea of what the plan is going forward. And if we spent the money once, let's not abandon the process just because we're having a hard time keeping up with maintenance. Maintenance is a fact of life with any services that the city provides.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Can I ask that May DeMaria's chief of staff come up on this, please?
Absolutely. Actually, I thought I had motioned for him to be here as well.
Oh, sorry, Council. I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Hold on one second. Let me. Yeah, we didn't. We had DPW director, water department director, and fire prevention representative.
Yeah, when I made the original motion to send it to committee, it was to include the direct chief of staff. But that's all right. He's here. He's always here.
We're bringing
That's
him
the
up.
one thing you can count on, Mr. Oh, he's always there.
Yep.
So.
Go ahead, Councilor.
I couldn't agree more with Councilor Napolitano. I share the same concerns and echoes on this program. I have seen firsthand how important these markers are, especially when you have large quantities of snow. You're trying to do snow removal off of sidewalks. You don't know where a hydrant is buried under a mound of snow. You hit a hydrant, it becomes a bigger issue. Or, for example, the fire hydrant down in front of 66 Main Street at the curve below the mountain. There's a little wall there, and there's a fire hydrant that's really crucial to that building. If that doesn't have a flag and it gets pushed in with snow, you're not finding that hydrant all winter. And there's 100 seniors in a building that several years ago, some of my colleagues were on. You've seen a bad fire in that immediate neighborhood at the Rotary. That fire hydrant was crucial that morning for that fire. I don't agree abandoning this program at all, and I'd like to hear from our chief of staff, as he is always here, as Councilman Napolitano said.
I agree. We will not be abandoning the program. We just need to work together, collaborate, try to find some viable alternatives. It is of the utmost importance, but it is a little concerning that they're constantly being snapped off in the springs, and you know, you don't want someone there playing with the spring, getting their finger caught in it or something like that, or an animal or a pet doing something along those lines. But it's true, it's unreasonable to try and think, particularly in snowy weather. We were fortunate this winter, but if we ever had a winter like a couple of years ago, I mean, that's, you know, to rely on the fire department personnel to try to clear those is unreasonable, because that's likely when fire calls are gonna spike because people are falling down and getting injured, or other means of assistance that are needed with heat calls and things of that nature. So, yeah, we need to, you know, come up with a solution that will let us identify these markers regardless of the conditions.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, Mr. O'Donnell, have we looked at what other communities do? I know there are other communities that flag their fire hydrants. Have we looked at what mechanism they use to flag their fire hydrants?
We haven't, we certainly will.
Okay, yeah, because I agree with you that, you know, with the spring and there's other mechanisms, and then it snaps off and becomes sort of a weapon for a kid playing with, you know, another kid hits a kid with one, and there's a whole entire bunch of things that could happen. So maybe that isn't the right mechanism, but having something, I couldn't agree more with Councilor Napolitano that it's crucial for the city's safety as a whole in the winter months.
Yeah, it would be ideal to find something that it's one and done, and we don't have to keep playing catch up right now, because now we're just like a cat chasing its tail.
Sure.
With what we have in place.
Great, and I'm hoping that we'll work on this over the coming months as the nice weather comes, so that come September, we're putting these back out there for the upcoming winter months. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell, for appearing
Councilman
today.
Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Councilor, it's your piece. I'm assuming you'd want us to refer to the mayor's office to see what there is for replacements?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very confident that the mayor's office will address it.
Okay.
If not, if they find that there's not a workable solution, we'll get feedback back on that. At this point, though, we're unable to really get any information. So, no, I'm quite content to refer to the mayor's office, possibly with a response, you know, in a couple of months of what findings have been on what direction we'll be going. Okay. You know, it's March now. I mean, we may get hit with another bizarre snowstorm. It's supposed to be pretty bad tomorrow. But again, I'm optimistic that we won't see the type of snow we got in 2015 between now and the spring. So, you know, I think the time right now is to regroup, get a better idea of where we're going to proceed in this program, and be ready next winter for it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. O'Donnell, what kind of time do you think you might need in order to be able to research the other communities, see what there are for other alternatives? I think the council mentioned a couple of months. Do you think that's enough time?
Oh, sure. I mean, I can have the conversation with the staff as early as tomorrow and start getting some input and getting the ball rolling on that. Yeah.
Okay. So 30 days, well, a couple of months maybe?
Yeah, probably a couple of months. I'd rather have, only because we're not looking at the weather conditions going forward that we have. So
Sure.
I want to make sure that we explore every option thoroughly and not just try to make a rash decision and be in the same situation where we are now, that, you know, 3 months after everything's up, half of them are down.
Great. All right, thank you.
I mean, I agree. A couple of months is fine with me, because they've got enough on their plate right now, getting ready for budget, other things going on. This is one small piece of many things, but I don't think it's something that at this stage of the year needs to be all-encompassing. A couple months is fine. I mean, you know, let's get the information that is going to work.
Let's do it
and
right.
Proceed.
We'll get it done right.
Absolutely.
If there's no other questions,
Excuse Councilman Wright, thanks. Thank you for
gentlemen.
appearing tonight,
I'm gonna make a
gentlemen.
motion.
On the piece, Mr. Chairman, refer to the
further
mayor's
time.
office and with a request for response back in a few months.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to refer
like
to the
to see
mayor's
it.
office.
I'd like to see a response back in June. I think June is
With a
reasonable.
response back in June, is that okay with you, Council?
It's fine.
With a response back in June? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so.
Mr. Chairman, can we suspend the rules, take item number 7?
Yeah. Suspend the rules, take item number 7.
All right. Item number 7, and this is a resolution up by Councilor Leo McKinnon to invite Fire Chief Tony Colley to the next public safety meeting to discuss the predatory actions of companies that show up at fires.
Do we have Captain Dottoli and Mr. Sapino before me? If you could just state your names and titles, please, gentlemen.
Steve Sapino, Executive Director of Health and Human Services.
Thank you.
Deputy Chief
Thank you. Gentlemen, why I put this on was to actually take a look at it. Reason being is because we had, and I have had lengthy conversation with Mr. Sapino on this as well, but there was a fire on a street, and within seconds, it looked like a scanner guy from the companies that were coming out, and they were shoving papers in this guy's face while he's sitting there watching his house burn, to get him to, board it up, clean it up, get the smoke out of his house, or whatever they were doing. But it seemed predatory to me, and it just seemed wrong at the time, what they were doing. So if you could shed any light on this. I know I want to hear from both of you gentlemen on this, so if either one of you want to start up, that would be fine.
Well, I'd be happy to start that. I mean, as you know, you witness it, these people, God forbid, they're going through a fire. They want to make sure the children are okay. They've just lost their home. So there's numerous things going on. So,
Sure.
So what I'm thinking is, Council, if we got three companies, three reputable companies, that those are the only three we allow to come into the city and do board ups and cleanups, because the cleanup crew is also just as bad as the board up crew. You know what I mean? And so if we have three companies, this way you're not giving it to one company. You give three companies the opportunity to, and this way we set guidelines for them. You know what I mean? Like, here's when you come, and here's when you talk, and here's when, you know what I mean? Because, like I just said, these poor people are going through so much. It's horrific. You know what I mean? It really is.
Just a quick question. Would it be just the boarding up, or would it be more? Would it be like the smoke removal, the smell in the house?
No, I believe you get three board up companies.
Yep.
And three cleanup companies, because I'm not
Okay.
going to name cleanup companies that show up, but some cleanup companies show up, where there's water damage, where there's,
Sure.
where soot removal and
Yep.
all. And, we have three companies for that as well.
So it would be 6 total companies?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
So you'd have, basically it would be the board up plus the removal of like water damage and stuff like that as well. Captain DeToli, do you have companies right now that you actively use?
Department, through the years, we've weeded out the bad companies, so there's
Yeah.
about 3 companies that do a majority of all our board ups after fires.
Mhm.
So there's 3 main companies that are there all the time.
Who are they?
That we have a relationship with. It would be Action, LCBC, I believe, is the name of the company,
Yeah.
and then it would be Boston Board Up.
And you have them on play right now?
The majority of the board ups are done by those companies. We have a fire investigation unit has a relationship with those companies. and
Sure.
We've never had a problem with those 3 companies.
And they're
They're
kind of reputable?
companies. They offer great service to the
Okay.
people in a time of need.
What about the second part of it? There would be 3 other companies that we
Is-
need to come in.
The cleanup, the overall cleanup companies, usually it's ServPro is the only one I've ever really dealt with. I don't know of any
Was,
other 2.
I don't know if it was them that was on scene or whoever was on scene.
I think it was something Master was on scene with that one.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what it was. So we need to like look at those 3 as well so that we can get them,
Well,
in
maybe we
play.
put something out, but the thing of it is my suggestion to just have 3 is now these companies that are kind of like yahoos that listen to the scanner and just show up. They're not, putting a paper in front of someone's
Sure.
face saying, sign this. You have to
Yeah.
do it now. And,
I witnessed it, and it's
Yeah.
sad. I mean, you're sitting there, the guy's sitting there with his kids crying, and then they're shoving a paper in his face, so not good, And it shouldn't be happening to, citizens of Everett, so we gotta look out for that. But I think maybe if we could get that maybe in a form of a motion to do that, we could probably get something done here and get it on, ink to paper on it anyway, so that they're covered. And then we got a procedure we got to follow too as well. Councilman McLaughlin, go ahead.
Do we also want to include public adjusters into this category as well, right? Because those are sort of the 3 major that you're dealing with when you deal with the fire, right? A board up company, a cleaning company, and then a public adjuster who's going to sort of fund this.
So as long as I've been on the job, I've only dealt with one public adjuster. It's Seltzer and Goldstein. So there, I've never dealt with any other public adjuster except that company. So they have a pretty good hold on it. And once the public adjuster does take over, the board-up company and everything else is run through them. The homeowner is.
They handle it at
They
that
handle,
point?
they
Okay.
handle, you know, and as of now, picking. the
maybe we
board-up
need to look
company,
at that as well.
Picking the cleanup company and so on.
And that's why, to be truthful, right, I would rather see us identify who the public adjusters and sort of get these people out of these situations, these board-out companies and these cleaning companies out of the mix, because, you know, you hear different stories of different companies that we think that they're good overall, but they have had past history that haven't been so desirable. We've all seen it at a fire somewhere across the city of Everett, and these people, no disrespect, they're pretty ruthless. I mean, they don't really care that your house is on fire. They want to get you to sign these papers that you have no idea what you're signing at the moment that you're watching your family home burn. They're asking you for your John Hancock on a piece of paper that means nothing to you at that moment. And to be honest, as Councilman McKinnon said, it gets you pretty infuriated that they're sticking pieces of paper in front of a guy or over a woman's face as they're watching their home burn to the ground. I can't even fathom my reaction to it, to be honest. So I would like to eliminate them from even being allowed to be on the scene and deal with the public adjuster, an individual that is now going to coordinate all of this for that resident or that homeowner. And I'm wondering if we can put some sort of an ordinance in place that we can do that, so that these people aren't even allowed to communicate or allowed to be involved in this
Council,
process.
what we're gonna do is, and this is through discussion that I've had prior, we're gonna look at the three companies that do the board-ups. We're gonna look at three companies that do the removal of the water damage and stuff like that as well. They're gonna have to be reputable companies, but that's another piece of the puzzle. What you just added was that, the public.
Public adjusters.
Public adjusters. Gonna have to look at three of those as well. So-
But they're the ones that they're the hub that coordinates everything else that needs to happen. They're the only ones that should be allowed at the scene to communicate with the
This would be,
homeowner.
and this, how we would draft this up, and we're gonna have to make a motion on it, but we wanna draft an ordinance up to where only certain companies are allowed to actually talk to these people at a certain time, not while they're sitting there watching their house burn. So, that's what we're looking to do.
Okay.
And I think,
that
I think that's feasible, what we're planning on doing, but it's more discussion. We're gonna have more discussion on it as well, so.
Right.
But for the motion sake of it right now, that's what we're gonna motion tonight, to do that. Get 3, 3, and 3, and then we'll decipher what we wanna do with it from there.
Okay, and you guys are comfortable with these three board-up companies, and, well, I guess we only have one cleanup company, which is ServPro. You guys are comfortable with these individuals?
The three board-up companies that do the majority of the work in the city of Everett, we've never had a problem with. And like I said before, we've weeded out those companies that are
You
those
feel
aggressive.
comfortable
I
with
feel
them?
comfortable with those three companies that we discussed, yes.
All right. So,
I
right
do
now,
have a
that's-
concern with one of them, and I'll talk
Okay.
about that off.
Yeah,
afterwards.
when
But
we're
there's one that I
we're
am
gonna grant
concerned
further time on this so we can work on
Okay,
it.
great.
And while we're working on it, we'll come up with something, and we're gonna have insight from both these two gentlemen here, so, and that's what we're gonna do with it. All right? So, Councilman Capone?
Excuse me, customary thanks.
Excuse
unless there's any
customary
other
thanks. Thank you for
Thank you.
appearing tonight, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So with this piece, the only other thing, and I understand what we all are looking to do, because when someone's in that vulnerable of a position, the last thing in the world they should be doing is signing a contract.
Yeah.
But one thing that I would like to include in the loop is to get a written opinion from our city solicitor as to whether or not we can limit the number of folks who would be responding to this, because you might be interfering with commerce. But I'm sure if nothing else, we could put some sort of an ordinance together that would set up a mechanism about approaching folks, that kind of stuff. But I would definitely like to get her feedback on it as well.
Why don't we grant further time on it?
And,
We'll try to create an ordinance with the city solicitor's opinion on this.
that would be my recommendation.
Does that
So-
work? Grant further time and ask the city solicitor's opinion on this
Input
matter.
as to what we're trying to do.
So that we can
Absolutely.
create an ordinance on this issue. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, can we take item number 5 off the calendar, please?
Take number 1 first, because I want to have all these gentlemen out.
Okay.
They've been waiting around for way too long, as is right now, so we'll get that out of here.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I apologize. Can I take?
All right, item number one. Item number one is resolution by Council Michael McLaughlin to invite the chief of police for an update regarding steps being taken before the opening of Wynn Boston Harbor.
Could we have the, let's see, Police Chief, Troman's Union, Superior's Union, representatives, Human Resources Director, and a representative from the Mayor's office, please? Bobby, why don't you come over here where a mic is, so you got a mic. Yeah, they can come up too.
It's on.
Gentlemen, come up
No,
if you
it's on.
want.
It is, yeah.
Gentlemen, we'll start here. Director, if you could just state your name, title.
Mike Vitrano, HR Director.
Steve Mazie, Chief of Police.
Steve Panzini, Vice President, Local 95, Superior Officers Union.
Kevin O'Donnell, Chief of Staff.
Detective Robert Hall, President of Local 94.
Thank you. Councilman McLaughlin.
Thank you all guys for coming tonight. First and foremost, Chief, I want to congratulate you for putting 5 new guys on last week. Not knowing that the last meeting and seeing that immediately after that we had 5 coming out of the academy and going on to get promoted and appointed here, it was a huge relief. It was really pleasing to see that what we talked about a year ago actually came to fruition. We had put 5 on, got 3 lateral transfers over. We were at 8. I know we were hoping for 10, and I'm sure that there's some steps in place right now to get some additional guys on for the year. So first, that's was really pleasing to be here the other night to vote on those appointments, and I wish those members a lot of success on the streets of our city. That being said, I think that we need to have a serious conversation about how we move our police force as a whole to get as one forward. I know that some people say, oh, the casino's not going to open for 2 more years and things aren't going to happen for another year and a year and a half is going to come by in the blink of an eye, right? We all remember when 2012, Mr. Wynn first came to the city of Everett. And we think about how quickly that time has gone by. It's been 4.5 years since that transpired, right? That was the blink of an eye, and since that's all transpired. In the next year and a half to 2 years, it's going to be the same method of time passing, very rapid, and we're going to have a $2 billion development on our doorsteps, and we're going to have a different community on our hands than we do today, or we did when I grew up in the city of Everett. So I'm going to yield the floor to my colleagues, but I do want to have an open discussion about where we are as a force, where we see ourselves going over the course of the next year, and where we hope to be the day that the casino opens. And I think this is a conversation that needs to continue to happen every quarter, every couple of months as time goes forward. So not every answer needs to be given tonight, but just so that we have an idea of an itinerary plan of where we're going as a department and where we're going as a community over the next year and a half. Do you agree with that, Chief?
Well, Councilor, I mean, we laid out a plan a while back, right at this committee hearing. The 5 officers you saw were the fruits of the labor over the past year. I mean, they're in a police academy for 5.5 months. Prior to that, to process them, to get them into an academy, takes about 5 months to do it properly. That's, you know, having them fill out packages, pre-screen background investigation, the actual background investigation, medical, psychological reviews. There's a whole process before the mayor approves these people to get through to an academy. They have to go to an academy, have to pass an academy, and then they come before you guys to get sworn in. So we had brought in 4 lateral transfers, and the 5 that you saw graduate. Now, we've had some people drop out. We would have been ahead of the game, but we've had people withdraw, quit on us, and so on. In the meantime, we have a plan in place that we presented here. It's hiring 10 officers a year for the next 4 years. I thought that's been pretty openly discussed. And so we're constantly in the mode of processing these people. I can tell you right now we have 1 person. So our numbers are at 105 right now total. That's from me down to the most junior officer, those fellas and young lady you met last week. We have a recruit officer at the State Police Academy that started on January 9th. We have 4 additional officers starting Reading Academy on Monday. These are folks are already processed and ready to roll. And then we have 3 to be named, that are named already, that will start the Lowell Academy on May 22nd, and 2 more for a total of 5 for the Lowell Academy that will be joining them. Those
So,
people.
Chief, what's the total on that? So there was 5 that we just sworn the other night.
5 which are on our streets. There's 1 recruit out at the State Police Academy. There's 4 starting Reading on Monday. There's 5 going to Lowell May 22nd. We're working on, that's 10 more.
Yep.
And then we're reloading again right after that. So we're constantly doing background investigations, setting
How
people
long
up.
does that take usually, probably? to
Background?
To vet them out, probably
It
maybe
depends.
6 to 9?
Here's the problem. As we're doing background investigations, people are washing out.
Okay.
Through the background investigation, through medical reasons, through
Yep.
personal reasons, they withdraw. So and a lot of work goes into this. So this is constant, but the plan's in place. The wheels are moving. I mean, by the end of next fiscal year, if everything goes according to plan, there'll be approximately 125 officers. That's not including anybody that walks out the door, though, or promotions, et cetera. So,
What are you looking at that now?
I'm sorry?
What are you looking at that for retirement now?
Well, we can't really look at it. There's people that are eligible to retire. I mean,
How many right now do you think? Like, just a number?
yeah, I mean, there's in the next 3 years, there's about a dozen people that are in the ballpark to retire. I go with like a half number. I mean,
6.
because some people are more clear with their plans. They'll tell you, I have 2 years and 7 days left.
Sure.
Then you have other people like, I might stay here till I die. I mean, they stay, they vary. But, I mean, everyone in this room right now that's here is eligible, well, the exception of 1. I mean, there's people are eligible to retire. Doesn't mean they're going to retire. So it's hard to gauge that. But
Yeah.
we're in good shape for the people that do want to retire. As long as we keep moving forward, which we are, I think this is the first time we'll be ahead of the game if we do have some retirements where we're not taking a hit, because usually we play catch-up. We
Oh,
lose
yeah,
2 or
yeah,
3, and now you lose 2 or 3, then you promote a couple, and it's a double whammy, and you're behind 5 or 6
You
officers.
still get hit with, the retires and stuff like that. Quick question too is, did you, for the CIP, did you put in funding for that, for these new additional officers you're gonna be coming?
That's not in the CIP. That'll be in the regular budget.
That's right, okay.
Yes. So there's additional funding that we're
I
seeking.
just wanted to see which way
Yes.
we were going.
Yep.
So that'll go in the regular?
Correct.
All right. And how much are you budgeting this year for, this total number right here? And
We're most likely, when all said and done, fiscal year 18 budget is going to include up to 125 officers.
Okay.
Now, some of those will be most likely funded at half year because we can't, they're not going to stop. We got to process them, but it'll be up on that number.
Okay. Counsel?
Chief, do we have a certain age that somebody has to retire at a certain age?
65, mandatory last day of the month of your birthday.
Okay, so 65 years old, somebody has to go out the door.
Correct.
How many are in that category?
1 this year,
I'm
September.
sorry, I should have clarified that. In the next 3 years, out of the 12 that we talked about that are potentially
Not many.
that could retire.
Not many on the mandatory? Oh, okay. I was gonna, well, it can't be 2, yeah, 3, he's saying 3. 4?
Actually,
Oh,
there's
4.
4.
So in the next 3 years, we're definitely going to lose four members of our force that have to absolutely leave, whether they want to or
Oh,
not.
that's right, 3,
That's correct.
yeah.
Okay, so four members in the next 3 years. Okay. Chief,
Excuse me.
Manpower is one aspect of this, right? But there's so many other aspects of this, and I think the other night we took an important vote in the Ways and Means Committee to appropriate the money to put computers into our police cruisers. That was an aspect of it that was a missing link that we were able to resolve, and we were able to do. So there's so many others as far as police cruisers. How many cruisers do we see in our force? Myself personally, I'd like to have a mechanic for the police department solo. You know, honestly, you can't pull a car over if you have a headlight out. You can't pull a car over for a headlight that's out, to be truthful. And that's not to be funny. That's to be sincere. And there's a number of issues that could happen or that could put a cruiser down. You know, the guys at City Services, they're doing the best that they can, but they have a whole fleet of vehicles for many departments that they have to be
Counselor,
responsible for.
I'll give you latitude on this. But,
What's that?
I'll give you some latitude on it, but we're talking about staffing and when.
Well, okay.
I'm giving you latitude.
I think it's overall planned for how we prepare as a department to see an opening of this facility in a year and a half from now. If I'm misunderstanding that, I apologize.
No,
I'll be more than happy to put another piece on the calendar.
No, it's not, I'm giving you latitude, so
To go after
continue
it.
on.
Council, the issues you're bringing up, you know, you'll get a chance to see all the items you're talking about are gonna be in a budget. You know, so when you hire this many police officers,
Yep.
you're talking guns, holsters, tasers, holsters, handcuffs, batons, training money, I mean, pepper spray, I mean, clothing allowances, you know, you'll see all these items will be included in the budget.
Do we have a mechanic in the budget, Chief, to be able to isolate?
No, I don't have a personal mechanic in my budget. That doesn't even come under my budget.
Okay, so that's something that I'm going to make a recommendation that the mayor takes a look at to be able to do, to be able to have an ice. I think the fire department has a solo mechanic for the fire department. I'm going to ask that the administration has one for the police department. So those are sort of the aspects that I'm going after, and I'd like to hear from these gentlemen. And Mr. O'Donnell, you can chime in at any time if you so choose. But I think there's a lot of discussion, and I know that the mayor is very eager on working on a lot of these things with us. So it's not really that the mayor is not willing. It's just that we need to have the discussion to open the line of communication so that we're all on the same page.
Counselor, what we'll do is we'll start on this end here and we'll move down. So, Mr. Hall.
So, Council McLaughlin, this is my first meeting. My first meeting I had as a president was with the mayor and with both unions from the superior offices, and that meeting was productive. The next day I got a call that we're going to stop backgrounds. So I think we are moving forward. Like the chief said, he has a plan. The mayor has a plan. The money has to be appropriated. We need the money. We have 78 patrolmen that are in our union. The most important thing to us is their safety, so we want the numbers up. A mechanic would be nice if you can get us a mechanic, but we want the numbers up for safety because we want staffing on the street, specialty units to increase for the citizens of Everett. That being said, the chief talked about how this is a long process. We took 4 laterals last year, too. So if we could get some movement to free some money up to get some laterals, that's a process that only takes 2 months. Now, that's up to the chief and up to the mayor, but us as a union in Local 94, we would love to see some new members. The 4 members we just got, one of them I did a background check myself. He was a great loss to Revere, but beneficial to us. So as far as Local 94 is concerned, we would like to see the plan that the chief has in place to keep moving, that the funds keep coming in, because we all have budgets. We know that the money, you know, it has to come from somewhere. We understand that. But if we just keep moving forward, and then again, if we could get some laterals, we would get some guys quicker, and that might help with the retirements that are going to happen in the next year or two to backfill them quicker so we're not waiting. But
So to bring you up to speed on what we've discussed in prior meetings, as the chief has explained earlier, was we tried to get a plan in play to
Right.
go after these type of numbers that we're talking about now, which the chief is right on target.
Yes, he
for
is.
What we're trying to do now, so, because I can recall what we've talked about there. So, I mean, the numbers, I think we'll get there. It's
No,
just
the
a
numbers
matter of
sound
the
good to
time.
us. The vice president's here in the office, in the back, if he wants to say anything. I
But,
think the numbers are good, but if you want to get them quicker and you want to fill the backfill,
The
because laterals would help fill the backfill as people unexpectedly retire or maybe get injured.
Chief, what
unforeseen
is that,
things.
what's that, a 2-month project?
Approximately, I mean, yeah, I mean, we've struck a good balance. I mean, laterals, we picked up some good people.
You brought some people in, I know that.
And we have the ability to draw people, so there are a lot of current officers throughout eastern Massachusetts that would be interested. They have to come from civil service departments. We've had some success with laterals, and, I mean, we've been doing a nice mix, and it's been working.
Okay, so, we'll continue that process, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll, you know, as long as,
I mean, as we
is-
have certain retirees going out the door, we could probably fill them with
So-
two
some,
month
yeah, in some cases, that is the quicker way to get them on the streets, and that's just discussions that, you know, myself would have with the mayor and his staff, and,
Sure.
but we've done them, as evidenced by the four we brought on earlier this year,
Now,
late
Mr.
last year,
Mr.
rather.
O'Donnell, on that note, you guys would be open to something like that? As soon as these retirees go, you know, start waltzing out the door, we can actually have someone coming in on a lateral or something to that effect. It would minimize the process of going after new hirees, but we're still going after them as well.
Yeah, so we're always open to that process too, but in deference, I mean, we don't want to decimate, or some other departments might be, they might be facing the same sort of
Sure.
issues that we're facing and be hesitant to, you know, want these guys to go or let these guys go. Sometimes it can be a delicate balance. Because we, as the chief said, we are an attractive city, an attractive department to a lot of people outside of, on other departments. So there always is a big influx of interest when it comes to that.
Okay, but that would be something that we could utilize if we.
Oh,
need
we
to.
always, we have in the past, and you know, we would never rule it out. It definitely is beneficial.
Counsel, I think the point he's getting at is we can't go to the well too many times. You can't, you know, a lot of these guys, I deal with my friends and colleagues.
Sure.
I can't go to a police department X and say, hey, I want to keep taking all your talents.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the nice thing to do,
Yeah.
appropriate thing to do, but both appointing authorities have to sign off on laterals. So just
Absolutely.
because someone may want to come here, they may not be able to get out of their commitment to that community.
Sure. Now, was there layoffs at any time for police? Was there any type of layoffs and stuff like that? I know that we.
There's been
were-
layoffs all over the state at various times,
Now,
and especially
we
bigger
wouldn't-
departments.
Now, we wouldn't pick those people up?
That's a different story. We're not in a period where there's layoffs right now. No one's laid off.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
why I was asking.
Yeah, no.
that. So
No, we've rebounded from those days.
So that's done?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
As far as Local 95 is concerned, supervisor on the street at all times, having a PS out there 24/7, 7 days a week. That's our main concern right now.
Is that happening?
No.
It's
We're,
not?
we're working towards that. We got a plan in place. We're gonna start, hopefully later this month, is we're gonna execute up on the minimum manning on the patrol level, as well as the patrol supervisor starting on the four o'clock evening shift.
When you do that, chief, they know that, you know, you go from 4 to 5 or 5 to 6.
Yep.
Or 6 to 7.
Correct.
You're stuck at that number, correct?
No, we're not stuck at any number. We can switch that anytime we want.
All
That's a
right.
management right issue.
Sure.
I mean, we can, you know, what we wanna do is look at where's are really needed.
You don't want to make a minimum manning number.
It's not a minimum manning by contract standards. It's a minimum, just more of a management decision.
Okay.
To say, hey, we need X amount of officers on the street during this time frame
Sure.
that we'd like to see, or an X amount of supervisory personnel
Yeah.
on the streets during this time frame.
Now,
And
is the question, now, that question that was just arose there for the supervisors, how many shifts are not being filled with the supervisors now?
Well, what happens is in patrol operations, every shift has a lieutenant and a sergeant, but a sergeant could take off vacation, could be sick, et cetera. So right
depending
now.
on what's happening?
Right now, they don't get filled. We fill them by contract on the eve shift between Memorial Day and Labor Day. But we're working towards the point where, which is what they want to see, is a supervisor on all 3 shifts anytime, whether someone takes off or not.
Sure.
So we're getting there.
Anything else?
That was our main concern.
That was the main concern, so. And they're being addressed now? So.
I'm sorry?
They're being addressed?
Yep.
Anything else, counsel?
Chairman, Chief, how many police cruisers are out of service currently? Because every time I go down the city yards, it seems like more and more are adding to the fence to the right-hand
No,
side.
those are cars that aren't in service, period. Those are cars that are junked.
So
We
those
see
cars-
those are junked. They've been
They
there.
haven't replaced those ones?
They go to auction, correct. We're constantly replacing. I mean, we put in the CIP more vehicles. Last year, we got an influx of new vehicles. This year, we're putting in for more vehicles. I mean,
How many more this year? Do you know, roughly?
I forget, I have,
It's okay.
and my plan's been submitted. I forget the numbers, because the numbers include specialized vehicles, for example, a traffic enforcement vehicle, a supervisor vehicle, and regular patrol units, some administrative vehicles. There's a number of them. I forget the exact total number, but it's a number that I think is gonna meet our needs for the fiscal year.
Okay.
I got a question for, now, to the Chief of Staff. Mr. O'Donnell, in the agreement with Wynn, are we supposedly making a substation at some point?
I haven't been part of any of those discussions. I've heard that rumor come up within the past few days, but, I mean, I don't know where it came from.
And if, well, it was supposedly supposed to be part of the
Part of the host
agreement,
community agreement.
The host agreement. So if that's the case, then you'll have a police station and a substation down this end. So, manning purposes for that. Chief,
Counsel,
you
that's,
might-
I
you
don't
might
think
have
that's not accurate. There was discussions of a substation in that neighborhood. That was not part of the host agreement. It's not in the host agreement. I know that for a fact, unless something just changed, like,
2 days
recently.
ago?
No, I mean, the original agreement didn't include that, but there's been internal discussions of having potentially, there's been a number of discussions over the last few years in the form of a building that there was a joint public safety between police and fire, but it wasn't incorporated into the host community agreement. I just wanted to, they're kind of two separate issues.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I thought-
that's
I thought it
that's
was
just
actually.
basically a rumor that just kind of, I
Floated.
caught wind of it over the weekend, so I was like, it was
Yeah,
news to me,
someone
'cause
had
it's-
mentioned that, and I wanted to just clarify actually on it. So that right there was not part of the host agreement.
No.
No, sir.
And it probably should have been actually at some point, but, you know, we fell off the switch on that one, I guess. But with that, what are they planning to do with that? Is that just a rumor? Are we looking at something like that actual?
No, that hasn't been part of any recent discussions, because and the chief could probably speak on it more, but I think with the staffing that we're going to get up to, I mean, and I don't know how they're gonna manage, if they're gonna add sectors or, you know, divide the city differently or anything, but we'll have the manpower to address any issues.
Sure. So, but as
So-
far as a substation, that's not even being talked of yet?
Not at this point in time.
Okay. Now, Chief, the other thing about this is, we're gonna have beat patrols?
Yeah, we have some beats now.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, there's beats during certain shifts and times, and there'll be more.
And then they're gonna be coming up bike patrols, stuff like that, as well as the. one
Correct.
that's,
I mean, we try to put officers out in varied ways. I mean, officers that, for example, assign a sector car, and you can ask these guys, I promote getting out of the vehicle
Sure.
to begin with that, and that's, we're trying to get everyone out. I mean, it's good, it's healthy, it's good for them, it's good for the people they police, the neighborhoods they police, but obviously in the winter months, when it's extremely cold, you're not
Dies
gonna have,
down.
yeah, there's not a lot of foot traffic to begin with for officers to engage. As the warmer months come out, you'll see them. I mean, I ran into one of my officers assigned to Square and businesses popping in and out the other day. I mean, they're out there.
And
but-
I've seen one of them. I seen actually two of them, and I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, just, we're obviously, with the more manpower you have and higher levels, you can do
do some
more
stuff, though.
that type of stuff with it.
Yeah, that's
But,
good.
whether it's mountain bikes, walking beats, or just stop and talks, walking talks rather, I mean, it's all good stuff.
Awesome.
Chief-
Hold on one second, to the director. Now, you're on a schedule for hiring, correct?
We are. We just had two follow-up questions. We're on track now with the management plan on the Mayor DiMaria and with the police chief. We've been meeting on this regular. Is it 108 top-down, chief, from?
105 physically on the
and
streets
does that
right now.
include civilian staff?
No, the civilians is a whole separate,
And then 78 patrolmen, how many of them are attached to patrol or actually responding to calls? Like, 78 patrolmen doesn't mean they're all in patrol, correct?
No. So right now, there's, I believe there's 14 officers in special.
12.
Well,
not include, from y'all union?
I think, I think from detectives, narcotics, it could be 12, and then it could be. it
Well,
might
it's
be-
traffic, that includes officers assigned to traffic. I mean, uniform is part of
Well,
operations.
so uniforms
traffic.
would only be about 12 that are assigned to plainclothes,
So
and the
it's-
rest.
I just wanted
this-
to make sure I had it, my number's still right, because I lost 78 minus 12, and that would be who's
Well, they're responsible for traffic, they're in K-9 positions, patrol functions.
Okay.
And I can email you the breakdown if you want.
Could you get that to us as well?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, that's a definitive number. It's 12 officers assigned to investigative,
Yes.
it's really investigations and youth service positions. Everyone outside of that 78 is in uniform, assigned to patrol operations. As part of patrol operations, that includes K-9 and traffic officers.
So with the aggressive plan that we have in place, probably a year now, I think we'll be on track. I know we should be. The only thing that throws hiccups is injured or deaths or departure unknown to us.
Sure.
But we should be straight for the 125 and when the wind hits.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Chief, have we started talking with the folks about the rotary? We're going to start doing road infrastructure improvements right now come the springtime that are part of the Wynn host community agreement. Have we talked about how we're going, if we're not going to do a substation somewhere beyond the rotary, have we talked about how we're going to kind of create the traffic pattern on the rotary to be able to ensure that our force can get down there at a certain time? In the mornings right now, right, it's gridlocked. Rotary is almost impassable. Have we talked about how we're going to start working with road infrastructure improvements to be able to make that more feasible for your members to be able to respond to a call down Lower Broadway than it is currently today? And I think that time is now to have those discussions if we're not, seeing that we're going to start doing that sort of construction in the very near future.
Yeah, I mean, they have teams of traffic study and engineers that are operating at a level way higher than us in terms of planning, but we're open 24 hours a day. I mean, our officers are on the streets. We have blue lights and sirens. Our officers know how to get around traffic, how to get through traffic.
No, and that's great.
But
and that's
you
wonderful,
can't create a plan to get through rush hour traffic on a rotary without hiccups. I mean, some days it's worse than others, but it is what it is. And those are the common traffic problems. Construction is going to create more hiccups, but they're short-term hiccups. But I think some of the plans I've seen are good for what the end result is going to be.
Okay, I'm gonna have some further discussions with the mayor and the Wynn folks about this. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm good right now.
Okay. Councilman Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just make a general comment. First of all, thank you, gentlemen, for everything that you do. Public safety is always a top priority for our residents. And, over the years, I've made requests about trying to get officers out among the people. More visibility, the better, between beat, bikes, whatever it is. Obviously, we want our officers to be safe, too. We don't want anyone out on their own. We want pairs at least, or whatever is feasible. So for my own personal purposes, and I know I speak for a lot of our colleagues, whatever we can do on our end to make your jobs safer, to make it safer for a community, for everybody who lives here, absolutely we want to do. So I appreciate the effort that's being put into upping the manpower. Both union members happy with the progress that's being made in terms of trying to get people on. It's a difficult process, as you mentioned, Chief. You might think you're going to hit a home run with a group, and then for whatever reason, all of that time and effort that goes into it just kind of falls apart. If people decide to change their mind or they don't pan out. So in terms of economics, obviously, money is the big issue. But for my own purposes, and I know that I speak for a lot of the colleagues, public safety is job number one. Don't hesitate if you have an opportunity to increase the force so that it can make it safer for the department, safer for the city, to put it forward, because I'd be more than happy to act on that anytime.
Council, just to add on that, I mean, you will see in my budget a request for ballistic vests. We're coming up in a period for large numbers of officers need replacement vests. They cost approximately low $800 a piece. So when you talk safety, that's a piece of equipment that's.
Is that in the upcoming budget?
It is. You'll see it in the budget. So I mean, safety, and then you're already with the approval of the monies for the to go forward with the technology and the computers. I mean, just the transfer of information for our officers is important. But everything else that we need to equip the officers in the budget. So.
Good.
We'll be able to talk further on that when budget time comes.
You men and women are putting your lives on the line every day to protect us. And again, As far as I'm concerned, public safety isn't the place where you worry about nickels and dimes. You gotta have the equipment you need to do your job so that we have a safe community. So, again, thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen, before we wrap it up?
Nope.
Let me see here, hold on one second. Mr. Hall, anything?
No, sir.
All right. Nobody, all right.
No.
So now,
Mr. Chairman, as the sponsor of the piece, I'm going to make a motion.
why don't you grant further time with reports back on certain items that you want? We'll give a list to the chief, and then he can get it back to us. Because I know there was a number of items you were looking at.
Yeah.
As well as, I'm concerned, I would want to look at the, when the supervisors are all in play at that point. There's, 3 different shifts, chief?
Correct.
So those would, when do you feel that those will be coming on board?
Well, I think that's again, it's a budgetary item and a staffing item.
Yeah.
We're gonna we're taking a phase-in approach right now. So the evening shift, which is really the busiest time, is gonna,
They'll see it first?
We're gonna start there, we'll see it
Okay.
first, and then we're gonna expand from there.
All right.
I mean, it would be, depending on, how the budget turns out and requests, the phase-in may go quicker, or it may go a little longer.
Do you have a time frame, you think, maybe?
Well, we're hoping,
After the budget's-
we're gonna start now in the current fiscal year.
Yeah.
But I think over the next few months, we'll be ramping it up and seeing how it goes, and, I think we're gonna get there sooner rather than later, let's put it that way.
Sure. So what's your pleasure on this? I mean, the reason why I'm asking is because I want to make sure that we're all up to speed on everything before this thing hits here, you know what I'm saying? So,
I'm going to ask for a report back in June on how that's working.
we can do either a written report back and then grant further time, just to, just keep an eye on what you want to keep an eye on or whatever, but you could do it that way or just, it's up to you.
I think having a written report is suffice in June, and I know that the chief is always available to ask questions and to communicate, and he's really good at taking calls.
If we don't have to keep pulling them, if we don't have to keep pulling them up here for every.
That's why I
every
think having
meeting,
a written report
then
is
have a written
suffice.
report.
Issuing a written report in June is suffice, and then
In June.
we can work off of that to work together going forward.
Absolutely.
So
Motion
make a
made.
motion that
That's
we have a written report back from the chief in the June Public Safety Committee meeting with the few requests that we've asked for tonight.
All right. Excuse the customary thanks. Thank you for appearing, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And have a good night. Chief, I think we got one more item, just one more, so, sorry. Motion made to have a written report back in June from the chief on the items that we have talked about. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so. Please read item number 5.
Item number 5. This is a resolution by Council Leo McKinnon to increase police patrols at Walgreen and Glendale Package Store.
Chief, I know that you're having beat patrols now, and they're in different sectors of the city now, so we won't get into that at all. But I know that they're out there because I've seen them myself. I was walking into Walgreens, and there was like a few people just loitering on the side, in between Walgreens and the Glendale Package Store.
Yep.
And they go up and down through that whole, that whole shopping
Yep.
center. And it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. They're always there. It's like, they're there, then you guys come, they leave, and then they come right back. So,
Yeah, I mean, Council, it's technically it's constitutionally protected
Yeah.
activity. There's not a whole bunch, I mean, there's people, obviously the guys that work that sector and neighborhood, they know who to keep an eye on, and you hit it on the head, some of them don't want to hang around when we're hanging around, and they move along. The guys that are concerned to us, we give a little more special attention to, but that area is not seeing anything more
What
or
I'm
less
thinking,
problematic.
Chief, it's more like you're walking into the store and they're like hitting you up for money, and then they start coming towards you, and they hey, I want a buck, I want a buck,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's
And-
kind
and
of
that's-
intimidation.
Well, I understand it, but that's also constitutionally protected speech. I mean, it's not, panhandling is not something you can arrest someone for. You can't physically remove them for
What
that.
about loitering?
Well, that's not even our property. That's
They're trespassing and loitering, if we have it from them, the owners of the
If
property.
if the business wants them out of there, I mean, those are discussions we have with them on a regular basis. We work with those places on that, but.
Sure.
But you'll get that everywhere. That's not just a Walgreens issue. I mean, you have
It's
people.
yeah, I'm sure it's happening down the other end of it.
It happens all over the place.
Sure.
So
how
it's
do
not,
we,
it's not something though, I just want to
Yeah.
stress though, it's not something you can just have police officers physically remove people.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these people are people, you get the combination of people who are suffering from mental illness that are on the streets.
Transient.
Transient types. And, you know, the officers, for the most part, know how to handle them, do a good job handling them. And, I mean, we're not seeing if your concern is Walgreens Plaza, we're not seeing an increase in any major problems there right now.
Okay. I was just wondering because I seen it, you know, I seen it happening, but I know that now there's beat out there, the beat guys are out there, so maybe that'll clean it up, you know?
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, as soon as I see them coming along, they'll be, you know, see you later. Councilman Wolf.
Mr. Chairman, I may not have been here at this time, but wasn't there an ordinance passed at some point, Mr. Burley can maybe clarify, that was regarding panhandling and loitering? Wasn't there an ordinance passed at some point regarding this and how we could enforce?
Yes, and
this?
it's illegal.
It's
The ordinance is illegal. And I believe it was repealed. If it wasn't repealed, because I sent some, it's illegal.
So the ordinance.
The ordinance that we wrote?
The ordinance is illegal.
So when was that, when did you notify us?
It was a while back. I mean, you wanted to fine people for
That was-
panhandling.
Yeah.
I believe it was. It's not an easy issue. Like I said, these a lot of people who are suffering from mental illness. There's better ways to handle it, and for the most part, when we have a real problematic individual, we do a good job of getting them services and getting them aid and moving them on.
Just a quick question from the chair on that. Now, and it might be off subject, but I want latitude, so I'm gonna ask it anyway. Section 35, chief, right? That
Mental
they-
health?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, if there were such a, you know, nuisance on that, I mean, and there were
No, that law
problematic-
is really limited. I mean, we could talk for hours on this, between people with alcohol and drug problems.
Sure.
You know, people who are suicidal and threatening to
Section
harm
35?
themselves, that's a little different.
Yep.
But these aren't, you know, these aren't the situations you're talking about normally under these circumstances.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, so Chief, there is nothing we can do about an individual approaching, somebody walks from Glendale Towers down to the Walgreens, and there's somebody standing in front of Walgreens, or in Glendale Square, anywhere. There's nothing we can do to stop an individual from approaching that senior and.
Hi, do you have $1?
It's not that polite, though, Chief. You know that as well as I do. It's not, hi, how you doing? Do
Some
you have
are and some
$1?
aren't. But yeah,
90%
hi,
of it
do you have
isn't
any
that.
money? Do you have any money
90%
for
of
me?
it isn't that polite and isn't that respectful. I wish it was, to be truthful with you, because we wouldn't be getting the phone calls that we're getting. And that's across the whole city. I know there's issues at the other end of Ferry Street. I know people that go and get a newspaper every day, and they see the same individual at the store every morning asking for $1 or $2, and they're not as polite as you're saying that they are.
Either way,
unfortunately.
it doesn't matter if it's polite or not. It's not, you can't use, there's no law to cover it, an enforcement effort, and it's protected speech.
There's
I
no
would not.
personal space that requirements that say, hey,
No.
you can't be up in my personal space. That,
No law such exists.
Okay, well, I'm gonna talk to the State House and see how we can work to be able to collaboratively work together on.
In fact, if, you know, we utilize, we're going the complete opposite direction. Utilize things like disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct. That is what's doing damage to police community relations. Fortunately, we don't have a high rate of officers using those offenses to solve these kind of problems. We have to be extremely careful because those are the type of things that courts do not want to see. We do not want to be bringing ourselves, putting ourselves in a position where we'd be bringing in people like the U.S. Attorney's Office for civil rights violations and stuff like that, or the State Attorney General's Office. Urban areas have, people that are going to, you're going to see people that are asking for money on occasion. It's nothing new. It's been going on for a long time. It's how we handle and in some cases help those people or send a message, but it's not arresting them. I can tell you that much. It's
Well,
not charging them.
I agree. I don't think it's an arrested mechanism that needs to be utilized, but I think it's a mechanism of our seniors should have the right to be able to walk down and get their prescription from Glendale Towers to Walgreens, or from Sacra Plaza to Brooks, or Rite Aid, or, from point A to point B, anywhere in the city. And they shouldn't have to be approached by individuals that they don't want to be approached by numerous times, asking for $1 or a couple of dollars, and then continue to follow them down the street and ask for it again. So as much as they have the right to be protected under freedom of speech, I think our seniors and residents overall should be protected by the fact that they shouldn't be bothered by undesirables that they don't want to be bothered by. They don't want to communicate with these individuals. We shouldn't allow them to be intimidating to our seniors and being bullying of patrons, period. So I think there has to be a middle of the road, and I think by there being some kind of an ordinance on place that our police can shoo them away or send them on their way needs to be looked at. And I respect your opinion, obviously, but I disagree with it, to be truthful.
I have to be honest with you, it's not much different than having utility companies ask you in a way, they're not so nice either about, hey, we will switch to our company, the sales tactics that might be used. It's you're talking two different peoples, homeless types, people with mental illness, and then you have corporate people who are asking for something out of people as well that show up at your door. I mean, I personally don't like people coming to my door for those reasons either. But to do something on an enforcement end from the police end is tough. I mean, I think the bigger issue is what do you want to do, or how do you want to help people with mental illness or homelessness and issues like that is really the bigger question.
And I agree. Somebody knocking on your door gets frustrated. You don't want them on your door. You don't want them, bothering your parents, and whatever the case is. I agree with you on it. So it's a whole entire wide variety of topics. But I think that it needs to start somewhere, and that's why I thought the ordinance was on place. But you're saying that is an illegal ordinance, so obviously we can't enforce it.
It was repealed by you.
Yeah.
It was,
okay. No, it's good to know because I didn't know that. So I appreciate you information.
The actual council. City solicitor ruled on it as well, so, it's that ordinance is dead. The other question, though, Chief, we could actually have up here the owners of the Walgreen complex.
It's a property management company, I believe. Walgreens doesn't own that.
It's a property management company, and we could probably have them come up and say that we sort of want, like, security there at some point, or something to that effect, and then they may be able to, shoo them along or get them out of there or whatever it may be, but that's something that we'd have to entertain at some thought, you know what I mean?
Mr. Chairman, through you to the chief. Chief, on that instant, the management company doesn't want an individual on their property. Your guys there are then able to enforce a trespassing ordinance.
They have to say to an individual, either in the presence of an officer or serve them, that they don't want them on their property, which happens on occasion. Someone goes in there and shoplifts, doesn't pay for items.
Sure.
We get called, we show up. I don't want Joe Blow in here. Okay, Joe Blow, you're out. Sometimes it goes in a paper form. We try to, document that in the system, so now that individual shows up again, we have something to act on. That's different, though, from someone out in a, even public, unless they want people removed from that plaza, which is going to be different because you have multiple tenants in an area.
In a strip plaza, there's multitude of retail. And then the other problem you get into, Chairman, is you move them from Walgreens, they're going to go to Rite Aid in Everett Square. They're going to go to
sit down in the park or wherever they're going to go.
So you're just going to keep moving them, circulating them around the city of Everett, and not everybody's going to agree to keep moving them off their facility. So it is kind of, I'm not really sure what to do.
I mean,
I appreciate the chief's information.
For the sake of the elderly going down to get their prescriptions and stuff like that, might be a good idea to have a security person within inside the Walgreens, like they used to have anyway. And as far as like someone outside, for the property itself, might be feasible to do something like that too, to make them feel more secure. If in fact they're losing business because of this, so. But excuse customary, thanks, Chief. Thank you very much for appearing. Good night. And with this, what I'd like to do is, I'd like to grant further time and invite the people from Walgreens, Glendale Package, the Napa First, the dollar store there, and I think, what else? And the property manager, whoever they may be. They're gonna go under the property. We'll get the property manager then, and then if we need be, then we'll go to Walgreens, the Glendale Package and everybody else, but I wanna see what they have to say anyway in regards to that, because it's becoming a problem. Again, so that would be my motion
moved.
on that. That's a motion and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? The ayes have it, we have done so. We killed